G'day everybody. Well, it's the 8th of February and that means we are 1 month away exactly from our first game of the season against the Gold Coast. It's pretty exciting. It's going to be here before we know it. It's come a little bit earlier for us this year than it has for most other clubs due to the fact that we're going to be playing in the opening round. It's just round one, let's face it. You can call it whatever you want, but it's the opening week of the season. So the video I made a couple of, about a week or so ago, I was stating how I was pretty optimistic, surprisingly optimistic, a bit more so than in previous years, not for reasons that I think are unwarranted either. Just by virtue of the fact that I think the club has set some things in place and we've had a pretty stable pre-season. And in light of today's intra-club practice match, which took place earlier this morning at down at the hangar, all seems to be going pretty well. The team got through, from all reports, unscathed, no injuries, which is always a good sign. And our injury situation is not too bad. I mean, if you have a look at the injury situation in the AFL at the moment, it's pretty dire. Teams like the Bulldogs, I mean, they've got, English is out, I think, and Treloar has done he's out for 10 weeks, I think, with a hamstring injury. Carlton lost Nick Newman looks like for the year, and Max King did what hopefully is not a serious knee injury yesterday. I mean, there's a lot of injuries around. Our biggest concern seems to be those niggling little injuries that we've got that might keep players out of the opening round of the season. We've got a number of players that didn't take part in the intra-club practice game today who, just sort of in rehab. Players like Laverty, Mackay, Ridley, of course, who did that, minor hamstring strain. Durham, Caddy. But all those players, by all reports anyway, could be playing next week against the Western Bulldogs. If not playing next week against the Western Bulldogs, probably not. They'll probably be back for the game against the Cats the week after. So the injury situation really isn't too bad. The most concerning one for me isn't any of those players. I think they'll all be okay. The most concerning one for me is Parrish, because he's had this lingering back problem, and we need Parrish. I mean, at his best, he's probably our second best midfielder. He just hasn't been able to recapture his best form from a couple of years ago. And he wasn't involved today at all, wasn't even running laps or anything. So, that's always a little bit of a concern. We need him. Look, I'll just take the glass half full approach for a minute, and we'll hope that they're taking a conservative approach with him, which is smart. I mean, there's no point taking stupid risks at the moment, especially if you've got a bit of a back problem. You want to get that right. But hopefully he can, at the very least, play a pre-season game against Geelong. I mean, he won't be playing against the Bulldogs, but if he can play against Geelong in that sort of practice game we've got, then there's every chance he'll be right for the season proper. But it's a bit of a concern that he's nowhere to be seen at the moment. What I've actually been most encouraged about, and this continued today with a couple of players I'm going to mention who played pretty well in this morning's intra-club hit-out, is, and I didn't have this on my bingo card list before the season started, is the surprising form and what looks like to be best 23 spots that are going to be picked, starting 18 spots really, for both Dylan Shiel and Elijah Sardis. Now, I made a video, I guess around a month or so ago, where I had both of those players on the bench as the fourth and fifth players in the starting 23. I didn't list a sub, I just had a 5 on the bench, and they were players 4 and 5 on the bench. So they were just fringe players. I mean, Sardis has only played 10 games in 2 years, and Shiel essentially didn't play last year, did he? I mean, he played 4 or 5 games at the end of the season. He played the entire season in the reserves before that, and I thought he was gone and going to get traded to St Kilda. And by all reports, he's gunning it in this pre-season, and he's probably going to play off half back. And he should be a good player down there. He's got all the skills. He's got a deadly left foot kick. You do have to be wary about all reports. We've all seen it every year. You always hear at every single club, someone's tearing it up, and every club's got this, this player's tearing it up, this player's tearing it up. But I think with Shields, I mean, look, this is his last chance. And he's probably going to, he's got 3 years at most left. So, given that he's had a really good pre-season, it looks almost certain that he'll be in the starting 23. And I didn't have that on my bingo card list. I thought, he was gone. So this is an extra player that I wasn't really factoring in. I thought he was probably going to just fade away and not really ever sort of recapture, the form that we thought he could. But it looks like he's going to be a part of the team this year. Sardis is the other one who, as well, played very well this morning by all reports. Him and Shield and a few others, which I'll get to in a moment. And once again, like I thought, like probably a lot of you, I thought, I was sceptical as whether he could make it. Always hopeful that he can make it. Number 5 draft pick. Obviously, he's got some ability. You don't get picked at number 5 unless you've got ability. But, we're now into his, third season, I think. Whatever it is, he hasn't really established himself, but he's had a fantastic pre-season. And once again, he was one of our better players today. So this is all good news, and this is 2 players that you would add now. If I was doing a starting 23 again, I would have both those players in the starting 18, and I didn't have them in the starting 18 earlier. So this is like 2 bonus players we've got, at least if you compare it to last year, where neither of those players were a factor. They were on our list last year, but they weren't contributing. So if we can find another player as well who can, establish themselves into the starting team, that that it looks like Sardis and Shield will, and we can get maybe that 3rd player, we're talking about 1/6, 1/7 of the team. That's a pretty significant part. So if we can find another one, I'm not sure who it'll be, that'll be good news. So the other player that I thought was really encouraging that also played well today in the intra-club was Zach Reed. Now, Zach Reed has basically spent his entire career injured, so he's probably one of those players like the other 2. If he can establish himself, and yes, we all know that you might not be able to. There's, some players just get a bad run with injuries. Remember Gumbledon, right? Sometimes it just happens, but he apparently was really solid today. And this is, once again, really good news, because we need him down there with Mackay as a key position back. And we need to get value for our draft picks. He was a high draft pick. And, it's good to see that he played well. What I didn't want to see today, I didn't want to see, Merritt gunned it. Merritt played well. Of course, we love Merritt, he's the best player, but I don't want to hear that Merritt played well, because we know he's going to play well. We know he's our best player. What I want to hear is that Zach Reed played well. And I want to hear that, Elijah Sardis played well. And I want to hear that Perkins played well, which apparently Perkins had a pretty good game as well. And I want to hear that, Brian did well, the ruckman, which apparently he and Draper both did pretty well. That's what I want to hear. I think most of us are sick of hearing, Merritt's gunning it. Well, good, we love Merritt, but, if we're going to be, make inroads this year, then we're going to need more players than Merritt. And Merritt wasn't listed today amongst the better players. That's good. That's actually good news. We know he's going to have a good season. He's a champion. Instead we hear that Perkins played well, Reed played well, Sardis played well, Shield played well. Draper, Brian, this is all good stuff. So I continue to be optimistic. Once again, maybe naively so, maybe stupidly so. But I'm, looking forward to the start of the season, going up to the Gold Coast, as I mentioned in my previous video. One of the advantages, of course, the Gold Coast have up there is, it's a pretty good venue. It's a pretty good location for opposition supporters to go to. With all due respect to Greater Western Sydney, the Blue Mountains is probably not that appealing. I'd probably rather be going to Movie World, than the outskirts of Penrith. So I'm looking forward to going up to the Gold Coast. It should be a ripper up there, and I think we can give a good account of ourselves. I just had a look at the odds. We're about a 3-goal underdog, but at this stage I reckon we can take it up to them. I reckon we're a pretty good chance. It's a month away. It's been a solid pre-season, a few minor niggles, a few minor injuries, which is common. But look, I'd rather have our injury issues than the Bulldogs. I'd rather, you know, you don't want your second best midfielder going down for 10 weeks. You know, we really haven't had any, you know, long-term disaster. Oh, Guelphy perhaps, but look, I think Guelphy is it's debatable whether he's in the best 23. I think he probably is, but I don't think our hopes of making the finals are determined on him, and hopefully he'll be back by about round 5 or 6, given that it's an 8-week or 8 to 10 week injury. So yeah, I'm continuing to be optimistic. Everything I see and hear seems like we're going. It's been a solid pre-season, you know, professional pre-season. It looks like culture issues sorted out, but the fact that we got through this practice game today with no injuries, and yeah, I really wanted to bring up, you know, Sartis and Sheila in my previous video, because whilst they're not, you know, well, Sheila maybe at one point in his career was an A-grade player, but if we can just get a full season out of those two players, I mean, I don't think any of us were expecting those two players are going to play 23 games. And they still might not. But at this stage, it appears that they will. So certainly it appears they'll be given the opportunity to. One thing I'd also like to see, I'd like to see Setterfield in the team. I always rated him. I mean, I didn't really have him in the best 23, and a lot of us he seemed to be a bit of a forgotten player. But I think he can be a pretty good tagger. And I'd like to see Setterfield in as someone that can go to the best opposition players. I've always rated him. I think he's a pretty tough player, and he's just the type of player that you feel good to have him in the team. So I'd like to see him in there as well. So what do you guys think? We're 1 month away, 28 days from the start of the season. It's always an exciting time as we build down towards the start of the AFL season. You get towards round 1, it's like Christmas a little bit, for me anyway, until you get to, and then it all goes pretty well for the first 10 weeks, and then it all falls apart. But we always have this moment before the season starts where we're all optimistic and we can all look ahead with blue skies about where we're going to go. So hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. According to the numbers, about 92% of the people who watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So please subscribe. You just got to click that button, and that's all you got to do. It takes like 1 second. So as always, have a great day.